Hello and welcome to Jasim Al-Azzawi show. Today is Saturday, October the 17th, 2025. And I'm delighted to welcome from Ramallah, Dr Mustafa Barghouti. He's the founder of the Palestinian National Initiative. Dr Barghouti, welcome to the show. And
thank you.
And the inevitable question that everybody is asking, whether this ceasefire, although some people they called it the peace plan, 20 points or 21 points, but in an essence it is a ceasefire. The inevitable question everybody is asking, will it last? Is it temporary? Will Israel break it down? And before you answer, just for the viewers, today Israel killed 12 Palestinians on the assumption and the pretense that they were coming very, very close to their forces. So the question stands, what are we looking at? Few weeks, couple of months, or maybe even a lot sooner than that?
Well, first of all, let me say that Israel committed a terrible massacre today, and among the 12 people killed, 11 were from one family. They were driving in a van, a little small van, driving to their home in Zaytun neighborhood inside Gaza City. And the Israelis bombarded the van and killed a man and a woman and four of their children. And also they killed his sister and her husband with three other children. So you're talking about 4 adults killed and 7 children in one hit, the youngest of whom was only 5 years old, and the oldest was only 12 years old. So that gives you an idea about the behavior of the Israeli army. They also bombarded several other areas in Gaza. Yesterday they killed 11, and the day before they killed 11, and it goes on. So, in my opinion, Israel did not really commit totally to a total ceasefire. They've changed the style of their war, but they are still continuing bombarding Gaza. And nobody should forget that they are still keeping their tanks and their army on no less than 50% of Gaza Strip. Now, is this a peace plan? I think it's neither a plan nor does it bring peace. It's not a plan because all it talks about are general principles. There are no details of how things could be achieved. But it's not a peace plan because you cannot speak about peace without talking about the ending the Israeli military occupation and without talking about ending the system of oppression and apartheid that Palestinians are subjected to.
In light of what you said, Dr. Mustafa,
Yes.
In light of the
Please.
grim picture you just outlined, it begs the question, was this whole just a made-up big party? First he goes to Knesset, Donald Trump that is, and then goes to Sharm el-Sheikh with so many Arab and Muslim leaders behind him. Was this a narcissistic trip? It has absolutely nothing to do with the peace plan. And I will come later on to differentiate between what we believe a peace plan is and what the West and Israel believes what a peace plan is. Go ahead.
No, there are two different issues here. Yes, there was a party two parties actually, to fulfill the narcissism of the American president, that's for sure. But no, there was an agreement, and it was an agreement about ceasefire. An agreement to stop the terrible genocidal war on Gaza. And it was also, in a way, an admission of the failure of Israel and the United States of America of conducting their original plan of ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people from Gaza. And that happened due to two factors. One is the steadfastness of the Palestinian people who heroically remained on their land regardless of the terrible losses of more than 250,000 people who were killed or injured. And second, because of the international, I call it the international solidarity revolution all over the world that isolated Israel. And that's why Trump came saying that he wants to end the isolation of Israel. And he said to Netanyahu, you cannot fight the whole world. I think these are the reasons why you had an agreement. It's a real agreement about ceasefire, that's for sure. But it's not a peace plan.
But also that agreement that you just mentioned, somebody fiddled with it, somebody played with it. The original plan, as was designed by the Americans when presented to Netanyahu and to the Israelis, they played with it.
Yes, sure. And that's where the Arab and Muslim countries should take a stand, because they were the ones who negotiated with Trump in the first original plan. And then Netanyahu came and tried to disturb it. And he managed to influence Trump to change many of it in a negative way. But don't forget that till the very last moment, Netanyahu was still hoping that it will not happen, and that Trump will not force him to accept a ceasefire, because in reality, Netanyahu was forced into accepting this agreement of a ceasefire.
Let me go back 2 years, back to October 7th. Some people find it extremely difficult to believe that the Israelis did not know that the attack is coming. As a matter of fact, certain information started seeping in that senior military and intelligence officers, several hours before October 7th, they informed the political leadership, something is going to happen. We need to do something about it. From what you know, did Israel deliberately ignore these warnings, or did Israel deliberately wanted that attack to happen for other reasons?
Only history will tell, and future documents, when they are exposed, will tell the reality about this mystery of what happened. That this country, this government of Israel, that is so proud of its intelligence and its abilities, has failed drastically in not only expecting the 7th of October, but also in dealing with it. Regardless of whether they really knew or didn't know and allow it to happen, the most important information for me is that now there are documents and there are statements by Israeli officers saying that Israel, when they knew the attack was happening, did not react immediately. And it took them about 6 hours before they really started to deploy their full force in responding to it.
Let me just stop you for just
let
me just stop you at this very critical moment and explain to me and to the viewers, why did this happen? Why they allow these critical 7-8 hours to pass?
It could be a sign of a total failure in judgment and in expectations and in reaction, but also it could be something more than that. I can't tell. What I know, which contradicts the issue of their inability to respond, is what the head of the Halevi, the chief of staff of the Israeli army, told his wife, as she stated recently, very early in the morning of the 7th of October, when he learned about what happened. He said to her, we will destroy Gaza. We will devastate Gaza completely. And then he left home, which means the plan was there to completely devastate Gaza.
Well, actually, the former energy minister, Mr. Cohen, who is no longer the energy minister, he said we should bomb Gaza with a nuclear device.
Yeah, there are stupid people like that who say these things. I mean, had they bombed Gaza with nuclear device, they would have affected themselves as well. We all know that. Maybe this is the only reason why they didn't.
As a matter of fact, Dr. Mustafa, sorry to interrupt you. Now when you look at the pictures in Gaza, it has been bombed by a nuclear bomb. The amount of dynamite that has been dropped on Gaza far exceeds the Hiroshima nuclear explosion.
Mr. Jasim, they used, now we know the figures, they used 200,000 tons of explosives. They bombarded Gaza with 200,000 tons of explosives. That is more than 10 times more than 10 times the explosive power of each of the nuclear heads that were used against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. More than that.
That is going to compel me to ask the following question, despite the fact that I don't want to interrupt you. With so much,
but let me finish that.
Go ahead,
please. It's 76 kilograms of explosives for each man, woman, and child. It's just unbelievable. And that's why it led to the killing and injury of no less than 250,000 people. Today, I was so upset about President Trump when he was saying in a press conference, or he has conferences every day, as you know. He was saying that they killed 70,000 of Hamas. Come on, 70,000 of Hamas. Americans admit and Israelis admit that 5 out of 6 people killed in Gaza were civilians. Are the 20,000 children who were killed by this Israeli bombardment Hamas? That is unacceptable. He shouldn't have said that.
When we look at Gaza, and the world has looked at Gaza, not only we are shocked, not only we are in pain, but we see a day like no other day. We haven't seen pictures like this even during World War II. And that is going to ask a question when the Israelis now, they stopped allowing the aid to come in simply because they did not get the bodies of the killed soldiers as per the plan. It's supposed to be in 72 days. With so much bombardment, with so much destruction, how can you find the dead people? Not only the Israelis, but the Palestinians. The Palestinians now digging with their hands, trying to find out where their relatives are. So this cynical explanation, we will not allow you to eat or drink unless we have our 2 or 22 people who are already dead, and we know that you cannot, not even the Turks, they know how to get them in, not in 72 hours, but maybe in several weeks, maybe in several months, and as Dermer said, maybe never.
Well, the big question that the Western media never asks, and the Israeli media does not ask, is who killed the 28 Israeli captives who are still under the rubble. Some of them were already removed. But who killed them? Israel killed them. Israel killed 28 of the Israeli so-called captives, or prisoners of war, to be precise. And they killed them, and they killed with them the guards that were guarding them. And many of them are under tons and tons of rubble. And Israel is not allowing the Palestinian side asked for bulldozers to come in to help remove the rubble and to help extract these bodies. But Israel doesn't want. This is Netanyahu's game of sustaining the war or a certain level of the war, and to avoid the total implementation of ceasefire and the total implementation of the agreement to allow humanitarian aid to get to Gaza.
Is asking for Hamas to disarm a delusional fantasy? I mean, how can you ask people who are occupied, people who are fighting for their freedoms, to give up their arms? No liberation movement has ever in history gave up its arms and won its freedom. So how do you look at this notion that, unless you give up your arms, or the gates of hell is going to open and we're going to show you what we can do? This bluster, will it carry any weight?
Look, they know very well that this is an unachievable goal. They know that every family in Gaza has weapons to protect itself because there is no law and order. And what do they mean by weapons? Do they mean if there are some rockets left? I don't think Hamas will mind giving them up. Or they mean even the personal weapons that people use to protect themselves, given the fact that there is no police force there. But that's not the main issue. In my opinion, this whole thing is deliberately created and they concentrate on to avoid the other major issues. And the other major issues is, will the Israeli army withdraw completely from Gaza or not? Will they remove their troops in Gaza or not? Second, the question is not about disarming Hamas, actually. I think what they mean, if you combine their call for Hamas giving up its arms with their conditions that they are imposing on the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, you will discover that what they want is to remove or destroy any ability of the Palestinian people to resist, even in the most non-violent way, the system of occupation and oppression and apartheid that we are subjected to. Why do they want to change our curricula? Because they want to change the narrative. They're trying to impose capitulation on the Palestinian people, and that will never happen. They, after 100 years of Palestinian struggle against first British colonialism and then Zionist colonialism, they don't understand that these people will never give up, and we will not stop struggling for our rights, which is something guaranteed by international law.
Now, let's talk about this new scheme that is coming up very, very soon. It's called the Peace Stabilization Force, composed of many countries. Will it carry any weight? Will it achieve anything? And will it be in that limited space with so many nationalities, with so many perhaps even agendas? There will be a room for friction. There will be a room for some sort of conflagration. Now, Israel is already somehow preparing and talking about the next target is going to be Turkey and the Turks that are going to be part of this peace stabilization force. Are we talking about a potential flashpoint?
Look, what they talk about is bringing some sort of 500 armed people into Gaza. What can 500 people do when the Israeli army with 350,000 soldiers could not do? It's a silly proposal. And the biggest question is, why do they want to impose on us foreign rule in Gaza? We don't want to bring back British colonialism if they are dreaming about bringing Tony Blair here. I mean, we struggled against British colonialism for decades. And we don't need any other foreign ruler in Gaza. What Palestinians need is to rule themselves. And there is a plan for that, which everybody continues to ignore, which is the Beijing Declaration, where we agreed that there will be a national consensus independent government. Hamas said they don't want to be in that government, they don't want to be the government, but they want a government they will accept. And that national consensus government could be transitional. It could be in charge of security apparatus, which would keep internal security. And it will be transitional, preparing the ground so that maybe in a year or a year and a half, we can have free democratic elections, where finally Palestinians will be allowed to elect their leaders after they've been deprived from that right for 20 years. We need the right to choose and elect our leaders. And meanwhile, a transitional government, according to Beijing Declaration, will maintain the most important thing, the maintenance of the unity between West Bank and Gaza. Any foreign rule in Gaza aims exactly at separating Gaza from West Bank, which is what Netanyahu wants to prevent the possibility of establishing a Palestinian state.
When you mentioned Tony Blair, go ahead, continue, please.
Israel failed in achieving its main goal. United States of America supported them, which was to ethnically cleanse Palestinian people from Gaza. They failed. And what you see now is a result of that failure. They failed to continue the genocidal war. They had to accept a ceasefire. Now the struggle is about what will happen to Gaza and how we can force the Israeli army out of Gaza. How can humanitarian get in? How can the people who have suffered so much at least have some sort of maybe fabricated homes they can live in temporarily? And how can they have clean water? How can they have electricity? How can they have medical care? when most medical institutions have been destroyed to the ground.
When you mentioned Tony Blair, Dr. Mustafa, and when that name was thrown about that he's going to head this group, the hue and cry and the condemnation, the criticism, the laughter, the attacks in the British newspapers and in British mass media and people, they said, are you for real? Are you crazy? This man who, along with George Bush, they invaded Iraq, and he should be in The Hague, not managing Gaza, and yet that's where we are.
I think his chances of taking that position are very slim now, and they're getting slimmer by the day. I think everybody realizes that his negative reputation is not going to help him, whether his role in the war crimes in Iraq, or the fact that even when Bush apologized for the big lie of weapons of mass destruction, Blair didn't apologize, or because of the so many rumors about his personal life, etc., or because he ran for 7 years the office of the quartet in Jerusalem, costing millions of dollars, and did nothing, basically did nothing in these 7 years. And
it was a reward for a crime. It was a reward for a crime. And even when he was knighted by the Queen, the late Queen, people said that shouldn't happen. You know, that is, the second mistake, that's the second knife we are twisting in that region, in reference to the first mistake, which is Balfour Declaration back of 1917, or what they call the promise. But you mentioned
but we know exactly why they talk about Blair, because they know he will be absolutely obedient to Netanyahu. And we know his connections in the region. I don't want to speak about that. But in reality, it's not just about Blair. It's about any foreign rule of Gaza that is unacceptable to all Palestinians without exception.
Let me ask you, you mentioned in passing something about that we Palestinians, we have to work together, coordinate together, have a better plan. And you did that. You went a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, you went to Beijing. All the Palestinian factions, all of them, including Hamas and Fatah, and you had that wonderful document. What happened to that document? What happened to the implementation of such lofty dream?
I personally drafted that document in the presence of Hamas and Fatah and all the other parties, and everybody signed it, as you said, including the deputy head of Fatah. But its implementation now is in the hands of the Palestinian Authority. It is the president who should initiate the process of forming this independent government that would maintain the unity or guarantee the unity of West Bank and Gaza. And it is in his hand, according to the agreement, to call for a meeting of all leaders of all Palestinian groups to form some form of unified leadership. I hope that happens, because I don't see any alternative plan to Beijing Declaration that is realistic, applicable, and capable of changing the situation in our favor, and in preventing the idea of separating Gaza from West Bank. And it's even in the interest of the Palestinian Authority to do that, because even the Palestinian Authority is threatened by Netanyahu, who has dismantled most of their authority in the West Bank, and who keeps saying that he will not allow them even to be in Gaza. So in my opinion, now is the time to face the world and Netanyahu and everybody else with a unified Palestinian government and put them in front of the fact. This government is acceptable by everybody, including Hamas, and it will be governing both West Bank and Gaza. That's the right approach. And I hope people will wake up and realize that this is in the best interest, not only of the Palestinian people, which should be a priority, but even their own interest.
You mentioned hope a couple of times in the last 2-3 sentences. Can I ask you, can we hope to see Netanyahu in The Hague?
Absolutely. If he's not in The Hague, he's imprisoned somewhere, in his house, incapable of visiting any country except the United States of America. I think that's the future that is waiting him. And the Israeli demand and probably the American pressure on the ICC, which reached a point of even imposing sanctions on the judges and prosecutors of the ICC, did not help them. The ICC refused to put down the accusation of war crimes against Netanyahu and Gallant, and they will never do.
Were you surprised,
so that is there.
Were you surprised, or did you laugh when Trump, as he was leaving the Knesset, he was asking the Knesset to drop the charges against Netanyahu, the 3 charges pending on him?
No, I wasn't surprised, because this is another example of low-level politics these days, and how low things have gone in terms of the way relationships are run between Israel and the United States. And it's simply cheap. This is a country that claims that it has a judiciary system and a respect of the law, etc. And then a leader of another country is asking them to pardon a person for 4 corruption crimes. It's most terrible. But what do you expect from such a system where those who are asking for the pardon are themselves facing many other cases?
Recently, Dr. Mustafa, I was writing an article. Pretty much the title was worth it. Was this October 7th worth it? Meaning the destruction we talked about, the almost 100,000 people and more between death and injured, and infrastructure is gone. And I was going to give myself the right to answer, and then at the very last minute I said, no. The only people, they have the moral authority and the credentials soaked in blood are the Gazans. They will have to decide whether this is worth it. The reason why I wanted to write that article is not because to answer this question, but because the consequences of the 7th of October will be with us and will be with the rest of the world for years and years and years to come. And perhaps one of the manifestations of that consequences is the cascade of recognition of the state of Palestine. Who would have thought 2 years ago, the very country that gave Palestine, which did not own to people who they did not have it, to have that country, would recognize Palestine, although very, very late. What did you make of this cascading of recognition, although there are some holdout, primarily the United States and Germany?
Look, first, there are 2 issues here. First of all, regarding, I don't want to take more of your time, but regarding the 7th of October, there are 2 considerations that have to be there all the time. Very principled 2 points. First, you can't blame the victim for the crimes of the aggressor. And nobody should blame Palestinians or any Palestinian group for what Israel has done in terms of the war crimes that were committed against the Palestinian people. The criminal must be judged for their crimes, not the victims who were subjected to that crime. Second, 7th of October did not happen because just somebody thought of it. 7th of October was a result, not a beginning, not a cause. 7th of October was the result of 77 years of ethnic cleansing, of 57 years of the longest occupation in modern history, of a system of apartheid that became worse than what prevailed in South Africa, and of a terrible siege that lasted for more than 17 years, depriving the people of Gaza from everything. It was a result. And about the recognition, we welcome the recognitions of the countries, even though they came very late. But recognitions alone are not enough. If these countries really believe in two-state solution, they should combine the recognition, which means they respect the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people. They should combine it with imposing sanctions on Israel. That's the only way to get to real Palestinian
Since you mentioned
freedom.
the right to self-determination, that is enshrined in a United Nations General Assembly law. It's 38/17, passed in 1983, giving the people under occupation, under apartheid, under colonialism, the right to resort to all means possible, including armed struggle. And that definitely applies to the Palestinians. Before I let you go, how confident are you that something is going to happen in the next few weeks, few months, to alleviate the sufferings of the people of Gaza?
Well, I think that is all conditioned by two factors. One is there, and I'm sure it will remain there without hesitation, which is the steadfastness of the people of Gaza and their determination to stay on their land. But the second factor that we need to make sure is still there and even gets bigger, should get bigger, is the sanctions on Israel. Are the sanctions on Israel, are this great international revolution of solidarity, which is now going on in solidarity with Palestine. I was in South Africa recently, and they told me there that even in the best times of the struggle against apartheid, the level of international solidarity did not reach this level that we see now with Palestine. That is the most important factor that will guarantee not only the continuation of the ceasefire and the humanitarian supplies to Palestinians, but will guarantee our success in our struggle to achieve full and complete freedom.
In conjunction with the last year's statement, and before we end this show, that global recognition and sympathy with the Palestinians has also shown something else. The plummeting of the Zionist control and hold on many countries, not only in Europe, but also in the United States. The young people are no longer buying that story for 80 years. And that's why everybody says October 7th have changed the world. The question is, how long will it take the United States to realize and recognize that the world has changed and it is in the United States' interest in order to break away from these old policies? Last comment from you, Dr. Mustafa.
I don't know how much it will take, how much time it will take, but I know that the change is happening and the change is coming. You are talking here about not only 51% of the Americans supporting Palestine, which is unprecedented. You're talking about a shift not only in the Democratic Party, where 70% say that that United States should not send arms to Israel, but even 37% of the Republicans are saying the same. The big change is among the younger generation. 40% of young Jewish people in the United States are against this criminal war on Palestinian people in Gaza. So the change is huge, and the change definitely will come. And in my opinion, it's not just the United States, it's all over the world. And that is so important. But it is very important also for all of us to understand that as much as we are appreciative of this great international solidarity, as much as we should be careful not to allow anybody to diffuse it, like they have diffused before the first Intifada and the change in the balance of power it has created. It's a very big task, but we have to be very careful, and we have to continue to work and continue the isolation of Israel. We have to remember that Trump said when he came to conclude this agreement, that he said that he came to save Israel from isolation, telling Netanyahu, you cannot fight the whole world. And that is the reality of today.
Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, the founder of the Palestinian National Initiative, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
We have reached the end of this show, but just before I go, in about 25 minutes, Ambassador Craig Murray, a former British diplomat, is going to be with us. So I hope he will be joining us at the top of the hour at 7 p.m. Mecca local time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.